heights that great men reached and kept were attained by early mornings and really, really late nights. His name has forever been mixed up in sand, stone, and cement. He started off pushing an ice cream cart. Today, his businesses are worth millions, and he employs over 600 staff. And best of all, he is 100% St. Lucian. He normally shies from the spotlight, but in this episode of Untold Stories, Rayneau Gajadhar sits down to have a tell-all interview from humble beginnings to massive asset accumulation to $46 million of debt to the explosion which rocked St. Lucia and his business. And most importantly, he reveals the blueprints of progress for the RG group of companies. Untold Stories presents Unbridled Ambition.
I grew up on the Badal Hill. It was the one house on the top of the hill. Still remains the one house right on the top of the hill. Went to school in the Methodist school, so we either took the bus or my dad would drop us to school. I went to school because I had to go to school, but it wasn't something that I really liked or enjoyed doing, but I just had to go to school. I didn't do well at school, if you want to know.
Oh, you didn't do well. What do you mean by that?
I guess I did the minimum just to pass an exam, and I repeated Form 3. So that tells you how well I was doing if I repeated Form 3. And after Form 3, well, did it twice. One did a Form 4 and Form 5, and that was it, just getting ready to leave school. But the idea for me was not spending too much time in school, but getting out there, working to make it happen. We had bananas, so when it's banana day, I would carry bananas, I would get paid for it, and I would plant flowers, put them in a little black plastic pots, and sell by the road. I would pick oranges and grapefruits, put by the road and sell in trays. So really and truly, you could say that was a business because I made money out of it.
How does St. Mary's College? First, where did you work? What did you do?
Oh, after St. Mary's College, you know, the first thing you do is try to get a job, so you send out 500 applications. I actually got maybe 3 responses, and those responses stated that they've received my applications and I'm on file. But I think 30, 40 years later, I'm still on file because they haven't called me back yet.
Where did you work after secondary school?
After secondary school, couldn't get a job, really, and a friend of mine, Michael Gustav, his mom had an ice cream machine, and I asked her to use it so that I could start selling ice cream, and she agreed. She even agreed that she would have given me a pickup van that she had. So we built a box on it, and then I started off selling ice cream.
What did you know about making ice cream, right?
Nothing. But, you know, everybody else was doing it on the street, and I figured the opportunity was there, so I started making ice cream. I started selling ice cream.
At that time, about how old were you?
I was about 17.
What was that like for you? You left St. Mary's College, all your other partners, they start to work, and there you are with your ice cream cart in the city.
Well, you know, generally, you know, people look down at jobs like this or when you do stuff like that. But I was very focused. I knew what I wanted, and I knew I had to work for what I wanted. So it was nothing about pride, or it was nothing about what people thought. It was about doing what was an honest living and work for it. I bought a Jeep and I started renting it and moved on into vehicle rental, and within 2 years I had 9 vehicles But during that time with the vehicles, you know, I automatically had to really learn auto mechanics, because anytime there was a breakdown, I had to repair it. And I learned auto mechanics during that time. During that time, I even took on other people's vehicles to repair. So I basically opened a garage at the same time while doing for myself. And I had to end up doing body work to repair it.
How did you get into bobcats?
There was a company that called Habitat, which had closed down. And General Finance had seized the equipment. And I took on the risk, and I went and I bought it. I rented it out by doing work for people and operated myself at the time. So I repaired it as well, I operated myself.
What happens past the bobcats?
At one time, I was traveling to St. Martin, buying VCRs, TVs. I did electronic repairs at one time. I actually had a full shop doing electronic repairs, TVs.
Slow down, Ray, slow down. Who will take have an ice cream?
Yeah.
Rent motor car. At what point in time do you start repairing stuff? And I hear you were a photographer.
Yeah, I did photography with Wellington Lawrence. That time he had a video camera. So I would go out with it, do weddings, parties, funerals.
Tell me how you expanded from renting bobcats.
From bobcats, then I bought a backhoe, which was not really good. I bought a truck. That was another problem by itself, because the guy that I bought it from was owing the bank. And after I had bought it and paid him for it, the bank came and seized it from me. And I had to pay the bank back for the same truck that I had bought from the guy. So, you know, it was ups and downs during that time. One of the jobs that I did was a job right in the junction of the Hospital Road, where there's a minibus station right now. There was one big manhole to be done there. And down there is really soft material. And the job was given to another contractor, and he subcontracted it to me. And there is fiber lines running right there with about 24 main cables that are live. And we had to build a manhole beneath the cables without removing the cables. And that proved almost impossible. During that time, engineers from England, engineers from all over the place came to try to figure out how to make it happen. And after about 2 months of they failing, because telling me what to do, I told one of the engineers, can I do what I want? And he thought about it, and the next day he said to me, yes, do what I want. The following day when he came back, what they could not have gotten done, I had done it without them around, with my ideas. And the head engineer at Kevin Wallace at that time saw how I worked and what I did, and gave me the opportunity to work with Kevin Wallace directly. And that is one of the reasons why I did a lot of work for Kevin Wallace after that, and that was the takeoff.
How did you grow from there?
I knew nothing about building construction, and one of the small contractors gave me to clean around a building before he was started. And during that time, I just said to him, out of the way, why don't you give me a job, let me supervise the job for you? Ray, I saw his guys wasting time.
Wait, slow down. You just said you had no construction experience.
No, absolutely none.
How you end up wanting to be a supervisor?
Because the guys were not performing. And I said to him, why don't you give me a job, let me supervise for you? And he said to me, well, how much do I have to pay you? And I said to him, you don't have to pay me. Let me do the job. And after the job is completed, if you think I'm worth to be paid, you'll give me what you think. And he said, okay. So the next day I started the job, I supervised the job. And after the first day, the contractor must have come back on the site maybe once every 2 weeks, because I had literally taken over the job, was dealing with the engineer, the architect, and making the job happen. Before that job was completed, he got a second job, this time to build a school. And he asked me to go on it as well, and I went on the school during the time I was doing that job. But by that time, the engineer on that job realized my ability. And the third job that came around, I was called directly to do the job. So it didn't go through that contractor, I got that job, the third job.
As the contractor?
As the contractor.
Slow me down here for a second. You're not trained in engineering?
No.
Building construction?
No. Not formally trained.
Not formally trained. But you start out as a supervisor on the site. And 2 jobs on, you're called in.
Yeah, 2 jobs, and that's just about a year after. Then I'm called in to get the third job directly.
Some would say that that man is your friend, so you get a favor. And somebody is making you smile and you're making them smile. So they're giving you this job. What would you say? The third job.
I bidded the job. I didn't just, it wasn't handed out. I bidded it and I got the job. But the thing about it is, they saw my ability to deliver, and that is why I was given the opportunity. However, during the construction period, concrete was a big thing. And I realized getting access to concrete from the concrete suppliers here had proven difficult. And I decided I was going to buy a concrete truck.
You have a truck, some bobcats, and a backhoe. 1 job under your belt, totally you. Tell me what happens next.
It evolved because I started delivering concrete to a lot of other people, continued doing backhoe work, doing trucking work, and it really evolved and took off. But I was a 24-hour man, so I worked from early in the morning to late in the night. And whatever I had to do to deliver, I delivered. So I actually would have done, like, in terms of jobs, I would actually do like 3 times the amount of work that any normal person would have done in terms of delivery, because my day ended up at 10 o'clock in the night, most times.
Life is a series of triumphs and trials. The circle of life has all the usual certainties and, of course, the unpredictable. Just one can affect you and your loved ones. Sadly, many fail to prepare for the unforeseen. Thankfully, we've been here for over 138 years, helping you plan and recover. We offer peace of mind at that critical moment. GTM Insurance, sound, solid, and reliable. Call us today at 458-6300 or log on to gtminsurance.net.
Eve, the first family of fine foods.
When I was called to do this job with Travis, and he handed me over the drawings, immediately looking for these drawings, I saw that we had some huge steel in there, 25 millimeter, 32 millimeters, and I had a little concern of how we're going to bend this. I immediately called Bryce and we discussed the project. I brought him a set of drawings and I just left it with him. When I was ready, I called him. Within 48 hours, he started delivering some of these columns for me. They are 12-meter long columns. And within 3 days, I was able to place 36 columns in the ground. And that has helped me move this job. If you see around you what you see there, that is 5 months construction on the ground. I'm doing this building in record time because of the steel Bryce have bent for me and supply me on time.
What experience did you have in road construction?
No experience.
how does a firm like Cable and Wireless give you, Rayneau Gajadhar, from on top of the hill up the bad hill, work to repair roads and you were not qualified?
And that is because I had acted as a subcontractor for their contractors in the past. I had even done some works for government in doing small road repairs as well. So I had some level of experience in road repairs. And based on my performance is the reason why I was given that job. Around 1997, when I was in concrete, I realized that there was not a very good supply of stone. And I decided maybe I should buy a quarry. So I went to Lyle Chase, who is one of the people that is very close to me, that I tell almost everything that I'm up to. And I said to him, I'd like you to call Mr. DeVoe and let him know that I'm interested in buying the quarry. And I sat with him, and when I told him that, he laughed. And he laughed a big laugh, saying to me, Rayneau, are you a madman? Do you know what a quarry is? And at that time, I said to him, no, I'm serious. And he was watching me like something must be wrong with me because of what I'm thinking and what I'm getting into. Well, he did ask, and they were not ready to sell.
Tell me what you saw in that quarry. Tell me what your vision was. Pisu Pantila, at that time. You did not have the money at the time to purchase the quarry, but what was your vision for it?
The fact that I knew that I was in concrete and I had to have some level of security in the supply of material, I knew I had to go into the quarry. What made it better for me at the time was the Millennium Highway was being constructed. The Mon had always been a major hurdle for that quarry in cul-de-sac because you had to come over the Mon with the loads. But the Millennium Highway, being it was constructed, I said that would have made a perfect opportunity. So during that time when the Millennium Highway started is when I said, when it's completed, then I could take advantage of it for the movement of material.
You're in the quarry business, and legally you must get a blasting license and so forth. So tell me where you went to study and what was happening at the time.
Actually, there was a course being run in the University of West Indies, and I decided I would take part in it. I actually took part in it together with 4 or 5 of my workers. We went up to Trinidad and we did the course. They were offering blast design and shot firing. There's a difference. Shot firing is for you to be able to set off the blast. Blast design is for you to design the blast to what you want to achieve. I had done both of those courses, and the shot firing course was a much easier course, so most students passed that exam. However, the blast design was significantly more difficult, and I think out of about 40 of us, either 2 or 3 of us had only passed. He had employed another contractor to start the job, and after the first 2 weeks, he was not happy with the contractor's progress in the works. And he just called me out of the way and he said to me, Rayneau, do you think you could do that job? And I said to him, yes. And he said to me, go and get the drawings and give me a price. Between the time I went on site and the time they had the grand opening was 11.5 months. And that was really, really good for St. Lucia in construction, and to deliver a hotel to open in 11.5 months, I think was very good at the time. About that time, I think we were about 1,100 during 2004, 2005. However, 2006 came around. I actually got the extension of the Amman Morgan Bay at the time, that new extension. By 2006, I had over 2,000 workers. That job, I had competition. They were leaning towards giving it to C. Williams. And at that time, Michael Shastney was close to them. And he was the one who actually, the godfather for that job for me. He was the one who said to them, if you want your job in a hurry, give it to Rayneau. And I think they had swayed towards me because of that. And I got that job, and they were extremely happy. During the time I was building like Armand Morganby, Ralph Taylor acquired Smuggler's Cove. And it was just, I was just like 4 months into the construction of Armand Morganby. And he said to me, Rayneau, I want you to do Smuggler's Cove. So he actually took me to Smuggler's Cove, and I did a lot of the work at Smuggler's Cove together with Armand Morganby. So at that time, you could say I didn't really have competition because he was really satisfied in what I was doing. The Labour Party was in power and things were good. Come December the 11th, 2006, was elections. The UWP won. St. Lucia was booming. I had bidded on 21 projects in St. Lucia during that time that should have happened in St. Lucia. And on those projects would have amounted in excess of $1 billion US. And when the UWP won, with all the plans that they had, I decided that I would go and invest in some more equipment, because if those projects came through, it would have been impossible for it to happen without more equipment on the island. I left St. Lucia, went to China, and bought some equipment.
Slow down, boss. Slow down. Because you're saying bought equipment like it's a fridge you go and buy. That was $50 million worth of equipment.
Yes, it was $20 million US worth of equipment that I had bought at that time. I had taken a loan from RBTT, and I had taken a loan from Bank of St. Lucia. So between the two banks at that time, I was in debt of over $40 billion.
And they gave you, the little guy from on top of the Badlil.
Because we were doing well at the time too. St. Lucia was doing well, we were doing it, yes. Well, I was at $46 million between the two banks at December 2006.
And you decided to go to China.
Yes.
Tell me the thought process. Tell me with their trepidations, butterflies, $46 million worth of butterflies before you made that move.
It was, I was not thinking like that. That didn't sound like anything to me. I mean, it just sounded like, just like anything else. It didn't really, that didn't bother me in one way or the other.
You make 46 mil sound like a flat screen TV, boss.
No, because, I mean, at that time, I was doing well. Business was good. St. Lucia was booming. We evolved, we had done well. So it didn't sound like anything much. However, by the time the equipment got to St. Lucia, it was June 2007. And on its arrival, you know, government had changed and St. Lucia was not doing as well as it was supposed to. World Cup cricket was coming, everything was in a rush. World Cup cricket came, and then you had a crash.
The global financial meltdown, it was called. And how did that affect CIE?
That affected CIE really, really bad. What nobody would know, or nobody would have even figured out, was between RBTT and Bank of St. Lucia, I had not paid my loans for 21 months. RBTT was like 17 months, not a cent. And Bank of St. Lucia, 21 months, not a cent. So you could imagine the interest that was being accrued on those loans and not paying anything towards it.
15 months you ain't pay your loan to 2 banks. How do you fall asleep at night, bro?
Actually, at that time, I slept better. And that was because, you know, during those periods when you're supposed to be under pressure is when you're supposed to be a lot more focused. So you don't sleep at night, you don't wake up tomorrow morning focused and ready to take another day on. So the better thing to do is to sleep at night and be ready for another day. What is the worst that could have happened? The banks came in, they took it, and they went away. Rayneau would still be Rayneau. And I had to focus on continuing to be Rayneau even after that time.
How did the market change and how were you able to start picking up?
The market really didn't change as such for that period of time. I changed. I reorganized. I changed the way I was doing things to accommodate for the situation at the time. But it was not until 2010 that we saw something happening in St. Lucia. And that is when, I mean, even in a worst time, that is when I went in and I offered the UWP government at the time, under Stevenson King, I offered to do financing of infrastructure in St. Lucia.
How were you able to do that?
So even if things was bad for me, I continued. I had my quarry, I had the resources, I had the equipment. I agreed to offer financing for them on it and pay over a period of time. So I utilized the material, the equipment, and you know, whatever small that was coming in to put towards the project. And we did the project. And I don't know if you remember, it was elections at that time. And I had done, for that period of time, 21 roads in St. Lucia in less than 3 months.
Around that same time, you were getting into construction financing, not just with the government, but with individual contractors. Tell me the rationale for that.
The reason for that is because, you know, so many small contractors always find it difficult to finance their projects. So what I decided to do was the fact that I didn't really want to bid against the smaller contractors for the small jobs at the time. I decided I would turn around and help them and work with them so that I get a share of it. So I went in and I did contractor financing. So any contractor who got, I still do it in a big way now, any contractor who got a project from government, I would give them all the materials, I would give them cash to pay their workers, I'd basically finance the job for them, and then I would wait until government pays for me to get my money. And then I give them the difference.
That's unheard of, Ray. It's absolutely unheard of. Some would say that you're feeding the same sharks that will come back to bite you. What would you say?
I feel good that I can help out a lot of the small contractors. I think they are very happy with the service that they get from us. In a lot of the cases, the small contractors are people who get jobs and not even contractors, but are just people who just get a job and know nothing to do. I feel good that because I can go out and help them and guide them as to how to execute and how to get it done, and they in turn make some money.
2009 to 2010, you are operating out of Corinth, correct?
Yes.
You have a concrete plant in a residential area, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me the dangers of that and the annoyance to the neighbors.
There were not really dangers to that.
Rayneau, you had trucks up and down this road.
There still are trucks up and down this road.
Up and down. Ray, every third vehicle that passed on that road was one of your trucks. You had a concrete plant in a residential area. What do you mean there's no danger to it?
Because it was not a residential area at the time. At the time,
2009, Ray.
yes, but remember, I was there way before that.
Sapaza Fenu, houses came. You had a concrete plant running in a residential area. Tell me the dangers of that.
In terms of dangers, there aren't any dangers, right? In terms of noise or nuisance, maybe yes, because you worked all hours,
Dust?
right? Dust was limited dust. There was not really dust to talk about.
You had a period of time where the neighbors complained of asthma, allergies, and all sorts of ailments, courtesy your concrete plant.
Maybe we should do a review now and see if those same people have asthma and allergies, because I think that is something that's common and people have asthma and allergies. Has anybody done a review right now that we are not there to see if those people have asthma or anybody else has asthma or allergies?
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
The question we most ask is, how do I know that I am buying a quality window? Before making any purchasing decisions, we recommend visiting the company showroom where you can see, feel, touch, and operate life-size windows. Ask us what style and colors are available. Make sure you understand how they work, the ease of cleaning, and if replacement parts are readily available. Enquire about our laminated safety glass and/or impact glass. Ask for a demonstration of the hardware, because not all windows are created equal, especially when it comes to casement or awning windows. Do not only select a window based on price, but rather safety, fit, finish, and a team of local professionals with over 38 years of experience. Come speak with us. They're your windows and your world.
For the past 20 years, I've known them for quality tires, batteries, and mufflers. My sister introduced me to their service department. Now all I do is hand over the keys, walk away, and in 90 minutes, Team Rasco works their magic. They stocked all the original parts for my car, and best of all, their courtesy car came back for me. Now, my baby drives like new. Rasco. Tires, batteries, mufflers, and hassle-free servicing. Telephone 452-0945.
If the country is to succeed, if I am to succeed, I must put something in place to develop other positive thinking people.
Do you think Gen X achieved this purpose?
Gen X did not achieve its purpose. The purpose of Gen X was really to bring forward business people who wanted to get into business. What I saw in Gen X is it brought out a lot of people who heard about access to money and wanted to get access to that money, but was never interested in developing a business or even working towards a business. But they did very well in coming forward to try to get access to that money. And that was very bad, and that has to change in the minds of the people.
You yourself started your housing development.
Yeah.
Tell me how that came about.
That came about because I didn't have work for my guys. It was nothing that I really wanted to do, because it has proven that housing developments in St. Lucia, you don't really make a proper return on the investment. However, when things were slow, 2008, 2009, instead of sending the guys home, I just built houses just to give them work. So it didn't really matter if it was sold or if it didn't sell. It was just a matter of just keeping the guys employed. Those houses actually took a very long time to sell because the economy was bad, people was not buying, banks were not giving loans, and those houses stayed there for a very long time. We actually started building in 2008, and it's only now, I can say, between last year and this year, that we see a movement in the houses.
And tell me what that consistency means to your staff and their families.
For me, it's really important that I keep the staff at work. It's very important to me, especially staff that has been with me for more than 5 years. I feel obligated to them in some way, because when somebody spends 5 years working with you, and I have people that are working with me 20 years, so people that spend 5 years working with me, I think their whole family depends on me. I feel obligated to ensuring that I do the right things and I create the right opportunities so I could keep them employed because of my contribution to a household, to a family, rather than just a person. This originally was never a store. It was never in my mind to open a store. This is the warehouse for my construction company.
This is a hell of a warehouse. A hell of a warehouse.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because St. Lucia did not provide all the necessities for a contractor. So what I actually did basically was create a well-stocked warehouse, and to pay for my warehouse costs, I am selling to customers to make a small profit. So basically, this still is not really for me to sell material. This is really for me to stock material for my own self, for my construction. But I'm selling to people, make a small profit, so it just pays for the warehouse staff. Why do I have so much lumber?
Rayneau, that's not an ad, you know. You know, you really made it as if it's an ad.
No.
Rayneau, it's called Unbridled Ambition. It's not an ad.
No, but you could use it to
Ray,
make
you want
an
to
ad.
hijack my program?
No, you could use it to make an ad later.
It's a documentary, Rayneau. It's not an ad for you.
Seems to be dynamite and also fertilizer in 2 containers, and somehow they got ignited. Unfortunately, it seems like 2 people have died, although that's the initial appraisal. They're still searching the area.
You had an explosion a bad explosion by Rayneau today. Yeah, man. About 3 people end up dying. I almost lose my life in the same thing too.
Take us back to March 21st, 2017.
I had gone to the quarry myself, and I had actually just gone in to show somebody something, and I left. I had stayed there maybe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes max, and drove out. And my construction on the cul-de-sac project had commenced at that time. So that would have been last year. And I had driven to that site. And while on that site, I was still in my vehicle. I heard the boom. Nowhere in my mind did I ever think, imagine it would have been coming from the quarry. I actually thought it was something that had happened at the dump site. And then I waited, and then I saw that cloud. I still didn't know. However, when it happened, my first reaction was to call Simon, and he did not answer. But that was not unusual anyway, because he still never used to answer his phone in the past. So I didn't take it for anything. However, my second call was to a guy by the name of Robert in the quarry. And he gave me the news that I never wanted to hear. And that's how I learned that there was an incident at the quarry. What did I do next? I sat in the van and I said to myself, I need to focus now more than ever. By that time, I knew it would have taken too long for the ambulance to get to the quarry. So I called back to Robert and said to him, do not wait for ambulance. Anybody who gets hurt, just pick them up and take them to the hospital. And I sat on my phone from about 10 to 5 or 5, I think it was 5, just 10 to 5 or so, till 10:30 in the night. I stayed right on that site. I did not move, I didn't start my van, and I was on my phone consistently, just ensuring that I put everything in place for everybody. I called Martinique, I called Keegan Cox at Slasper for him to keep the airports open. I called for the air ambulance, I called for the doctors, I called for everybody. So all I did was stay there and put everything in place. Even when they had called me and told me the people were at the hospital, I did not want to go. I did not want to go and see. I wanted to stay focused to make sure that I put everything in place for everybody else. And that is how I handled that first day. By about 7 o'clock, I got the call that Simon had died. So at that time, you could imagine how I would have to deal with a situation like that.
Take me back to Simon's funeral. You are in that church, and everybody else there has their own perception of what happened. And inevitably, whether you were involved or not, the fingers point to you.
During the whole funeral proceeding, I remained focused until the eulogy. And that was when I really broke down.
Ray, what happened in that quarry that day?
I do not know exactly what happened in the quarry that day. I can only say what I was told. At the time, Simon is the one who generally runs the operations. He knows everything that goes on there. And Kodra, who was the main man at the crushing and blasting operations, was there at the time. They were both certified blasters, and they were both aware and trained in the use of explosives. Even at the time when the smoke in the container was coming up, I was told that Simon had left all the way by the block plant when he had seen the smoke and drove past to go up to tell all the guys to get out of the area. But he himself went right in front of the container. And right at that time is when the explosion took place.
So there was welding happening at that container?
Apparently, there was welding happening at the container at the time.
What was inside of that container?
Ammonium nitrate.
And it's used for?
Ammonium nitrate is used in blasting. It's actually a fertilizer, but it's an explosive fertilizer. So under normal conditions, it is not an explosive. Under right conditions, it becomes an explosive. It just happened that it became an explosive because the container was locked. A fire apparently had caught inside the container, and Kodra went and he opened the container. And the second he opened it, it got air and the fire got bigger, and that's what caused the explosion.
70% of all health decisions are influenced by lab results. Delivery of accurate, reliable, and timely results has been our mandate for over 20 years. We are Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited, generating hundreds of lab tests each year while delivering quality, personalized, confidential service, one client at a time. With a reliable network of regional and international partners, all tests are conducted with patient care in mind. Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited, saving lives and caring for people. We focus on results so you can focus on what's important. Telephone 459-2200.
How did that explosion impact your business?
The explosion impacted us significantly. For the first few weeks or the first couple months, mentally it destabilized a lot of the workers. For the company itself, it was a costly exercise, and the losses that we had in terms of material, equipment, the building and so on was significant, but not as significant as the loss of life. So financially, it has impacted the business significantly. When that happened, I had to move quickly to change the whole perception of what the quarry was like. So I immediately embarked on a redevelopment of the quarry, the garage, the facility, in an effort to remove any sign or remembrance of anything that was there at the time of the accident, so that none of the workers coming there would even remember it on an ordinary day. So that cost me some money as well, but I think it paid off, because 4 months into us doing work there, there's not a sign, there's not a trace, there's nothing that you could go there and see that would remind you of the accident.
Since the accident, the other workers from that quarry, since there's no blasting going on, have you laid them off?
I have tried and done everything to keep all the workers at work. You know, it's really bad for me to make workers pay for something that they have no control over. They're depending on me for themselves and their families. St. Lucia is at a bad time now when there's little to no work around. If I was to dismiss, lay off those guys, where would they go?
How old are you now, Ray?
52.
And at 52 years old, many would say that you've amassed a lot. Correct?
I guess they would say that.
Ray, when is enough enough?
Enough was enough when I was 32 years. I had gotten enough. I had enough at 32 years old. I had practically retired in my mind at 32 years old. But between the time I started and when I got to 32 years old, I had developed a habit, and that habit was work. So it continued and it grew. And by the time I was about 40, I think it was time again for me to retire again. But instead of I actually moved into much bigger, I took bigger risks, I did much bigger stuff, and I continue to do, even with the challenges that come through every day.
Tell me about the people in your life. Word is that you have a pint-sized lady driving a monster-sized truck. Tell me about her.
That's Savi, my daughter. Savi actually grew up like all the kids on the sites. Savi was actually driving the small 3-ton trucks at 8 years old. She was actually driving it and driving it loaded at 8 years old. So she knew how to drive from a very early age. Gifter, on the other hand, is a lot like me. Very bold and wanting to do stuff. She has done well. Gifter is the oldest one. She has done well. And very impatient originally, but under Navita, she has mellowed down and she has learnt a lot and she has been very focused. And now she's responsible for the outlet at our Lafayette new outlet, and now she's fully responsible for it. Mukesh is the other son, so he would be number 3. Mukesh is 18 years old now, and he's a big boy. He's done very well, and not as focused as the others, but I have now given him the responsibility of the canteen at the quarry. And it's not just the responsibility, but I actually gave it to him. We also have Parish, who is the other son. That's Mukesh's brother. He's 11 years old, still at school.
He's the little Bako boy.
He's the little Bako boy, but he doesn't want to work. He just wants to drive and operate.
But little Bako boy is operating a Bako like he's been doing it for 20 years.
Yes, because he's very smart and he goes on the internet and he learns all the stuff and wants to try it. But he doesn't want to do anything else but drive and operate.
Ray, it's 2018. Where do you go from here? Tell me of the next big project for you and for St. Lucia.
I have a couple of big plans. One of them is the cul-de-sac development, which is a very big development that I will go ahead and do immediately once we get from government the necessary concessions that they give to everybody else. And I think that's going to make a major change, not just for cul-de-sac, but for St. Lucia.
Considering where you started, perhaps there might be somebody out there with an idea, a dream, the drive, but no support, no financing. What would you say to that person?
The dream is bigger than their finance. The dream is bigger than what they can really do. And I think one needs to come back to dream to what I can afford. When I started to dream about only what I had at the time. And we must always start to where we can reach and then move on. So it's pointless wanting to build a shuttle to go into space, to take people up for $200,000 when you can't pay your passage to take a plane to go to Trinidad. So the thinking has to be readjusted in an effort to move forward.
has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been